Hey friends, Miss Bouchard here. I'll be teaching you guys social studies today on Monday the 30th. So today we'll be learning about the different types of governments around the world. So we'll be learning about who is in charge of that type of government and how they got in that position. Okay, so here we go. Alright friends, so before we can start our lesson, we have to talk about our target or goals for today. So our first one is I can identify the different types of governments there are around the world. So this means we're going to figure out what the different types of governments that there are in different countries in the world. Our second one is I can determine the difference between autocracy and democracy. So autocracy and democracy are things that we're going to talk about a lot. And democracy you may have heard of before, but we're going to learn a little bit more about it today. So we're going to find the difference between these two types of governments, and you're going to be able to tell me in your own words in a sentence about the difference between the autocracy and democracy. This way I know if you understand the lesson today. So who is in charge? There are different types of governments for different countries. In each government there are different leaders that are in charge. For example, in the United States we have the president that's in charge. And another example is in England, who has the Queen in charge. So different governments have different leaders and different types of people or roles that are in charge. So some countries also have one leader who makes all the decisions, and other countries give power to the people or the citizens like us to have the power in the country. So the first type of government we'll be talking about is the autocracy. An autocracy is where the government is in charge by only one person. The one person has all the power to make all the decisions for the entire country. So there are two main types of autocracies. There's the monarchy and a dictatorship. So a monarchy is what England has, and they have the king or queen. A dictatorship is where the dictator has all the control. They give no control to anyone else, and no one else has any decisions that they can make. We're going to talk a little more about the monarchy and the dictatorship. The monarchy is where the king or queen rules the country. So the monarchy is the king or queen ruling the country. They make most of the decisions for the country. The king or queen is also called a monarch. King or queens usually come into power through their families. So this means that the king would have a son or daughter, and whoever is born first usually comes into power next. So the king or queen has a daughter that's older than the son, the daughter will become the queen. Monarchs usually share the power with other parts and people in the government. This means that there's other people that help the monarchs make decisions. An example country that has a monarchy is called England. So England has a queen that rules the country. Let's move over to our dictatorship. A dictatorship is where a dictator has all the power. The dictator makes all of the decisions for all people on everything. Sometimes the dictator doesn't do it so nicely as well. So whatever the dictator wants, the country has to do. And the people, like us, the citizens, have no say on what the country should be doing. An example country that has a dictatorship for their government is North Korea. So the difference between a monarchy and a dictatorship is that a monarchy has a king or queen who sometimes shares the power with other people. A dictatorship has a dictator that makes all the decisions, and it doesn't matter what anyone else says. Whatever the dictator wants is what has to happen. So the next type of government that we'll be talking about is a democracy. A democracy is for the people, so the power is to the people. The citizens hold all of the power. There are two different types of democracy. We have the representative democracy and the direct democracy. The representative democracy is where people elect their leaders. So electing means that the people are voting. They vote for their leaders. In a direct democracy, the people are the leaders. We'll talk a little bit more about democracy on the next slide. So we have our representative democracy, where we already talked about how people elect or vote for their leaders. The leaders then make the decisions on issues, they pass laws, and other things to keep a country going. If citizens do not like what the leaders are doing, they will vote for new ones. An example country of this type of government, who has this type of government, is us in the United States. We vote for our president and other government officials, and they make the decisions for us. So we vote for the ones that we like and think that can do well at running our country. If we don't like the decisions they're making, we can go ahead and vote for a new one. In a direct democracy, citizens are directly involved in the government. This means that they have to make decisions on laws and rules. So the people are the ones that are involved in the government. They make the rules and decisions, and they may be required to act like a judge. This type of democracy is usually not popular now. Countries are a little bit too big to have this government, and too many people have different ideas. But in the past, Athens in the country Greece had this type of democracy, but we really don't see it anymore. Let's talk a little bit more about democracy in the United States. The United States has had the same type of government for more than 200 years. It's called a representative democracy. Among the nations of the world, it is unusual for a system of government to last so long. Most governments are based on a written set of principles, sometimes called a constitution or a charter. When citizens directly participate by voting, the government is called a democracy. This is telling us that a representative democracy means that us as citizens and people vote for the leader, and that leader represents us and makes the rules for our country. So the leader represents our thoughts and ideas and how we want our country to run. A democracy has lasted for 200 years, and that is unusual for a lot of places. There's no other nation that has had a government that has lasted and worked well for them, except for the United States, which has worked with democracy and having the representative democracy for more than 200 years. There are 3 other forms of government that aren't as popular as a democracy or a monarchy, but they are important and we should probably talk about them a little bit. The first one is called an oligarchy. In the oligarchy, it's ran by a small group of people that have the power. So that small group works together to make the rules and decisions for the country and for the people and citizens. A theocracy is where the government realizes or recognizes that God or any other type of divine being as the authority. So usually they have religious laws that solve problems and is used to rule the people. So these certain laws and religion makes the decisions and helps them decide what they should do as a country. And our last one is called an anarchy. In an anarchy, nobody is in control of the government. They believe that they should be allowed to live with no government or leader telling them what to do. So this isn't really popular in the world, but people do think that anarchy should be good and that they don't need anyone telling them what to do, and they should just live without anyone having control over them. So now that we've learned all about the different types of government, we can answer some questions. Here's one that we can do together. The question is asking us, what type of government is ruled by the citizens? So we're trying to figure out which government is ruled by the citizens. If we look at the autocracy, it's saying that one person has all the power. So we know that it can't be a monarchy or a dictatorship because that means only one person has the power. Let's go down to the democracy. Democracy says that the citizens have all the power. Okay, so we know it's ruled by the citizens. Let's look at each of these types of democracies. The representative democracy says that people elect their leaders. So they're not ruling the government, they're just electing their leaders. So we know it's probably not the representative democracy. The direct democracy says that citizens directly involved in the government. So they're directly involved, meaning that they make the decisions. So this is our correct answer. The direct democracy has the citizens ruling the government. Alright friends, we've learned a lot of different things today in social studies. We definitely hit our targets of I can identify the different types of governments there are around the world. We talked about so many different governments and how they are different in different countries. And we have I can determine the difference between autocracy and democracy. So your next goal is to complete multiple choice questions, and you will be showing us if you understand the different types of governments around the world, and showing us if you can determine the difference between autocracy and democracy. Alright friends, now it's your turn to show me what you know. Answer the questions below with the best that you can. You can always come back to this video and re-watch parts of it before you answer questions, or you can use the chart that I made and I'll have that on here for you to refer back to as well. You guys are going to do great, and good luck.